joining Tayyabani Sarkhan for the news of this hour. I am Ali Ahmed. Let us take you to the headlines of the hour.
History of an exceptional FIFA World Cup kicks off at Al Stadium in Doha, Qatar. The mega event will wrap up less than a month later with the final set to be played on December 18th.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif extends his best wishes to the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, for the hosting of the Football World Cup. He says the world will experience the best of Qatar's history, culture and hospitality.
United Nations COP27 summit in Egypt adopts the historic climate agreement that calls for rapid cuts in emissions and efforts to slow the global warming and to help countries worst hit by climate change.
Establishment of the Loss and Damage Fund at the United Nations Climate Summit is the first pivotal step towards the goal of summit justice. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif says it is up to the Transitional Committee to build on the historic development. He appreciates Minister for Climate Change, Shari Rahman, and her team for their contribution and hard work.
Foreign Minister Bilal Bhutto Zardari terms the establishment of Damage and Loss Fund for compensation of climate damage a win for the Pakistan and entire developing country. Also, the expresses of gratitude to all the members of G77 and China for their continued support and trust in Pakistan's leadership.
Minister for Climate Change, Shari Rahman, says establishment of a loss and damage fund is an investment in climate justice. She expresses her hope that developing countries will be providing technical assistance to avert and minimize the impact of climate change.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomes the COP27 final agreement, however, says there is still much to be done.
Indian troops in their fresh act of state terrorism marked one more Kashmiri youth in Islamabad district of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The troops martyred the youth in a fake encounter during a military operation.
Kazakhstan holds a snap presidential vote expected to cement the incumbent Kassym-Jomart Tokayev grip on power. Now PTV World is covering the presidential elections from Kazakhstan.
And World Children's Day is being observed today to improve children's welfare worldwide. This year's theme of the day is inclusion for every child. Now the news in detail. Qatar makes history as exceptional FIFA World Cup kicks off at Al Bayt Stadium in Doha. The mega event will wrap up less than a month later with the final set to be played on December 18th. The foreign government officials, VIPs and celebrities were in the crowd as the first World Cup stage in the Arab world opened at the Bedouin tent-inspired stadium. The venue is one of an array of new stadiums built for the tournament, which has cost Qatar an estimated $200 billion, the most expensive World Cup in the history. The South Korean K-pop star Jungkook headlined the opening ceremony, which reflected themes of humanity, respect, and inclusion. More in the following report by our sports desk.
Decade ago. The tournament will be played across 8 stadiums, and some fans will stay on cruise ships and at sites in the desert, with at least 3 floating hotels docking in Doha. 32 teams will contest the tournament, which will be played out in 64 matches over 28 days, including host Qatar, holders France, and 5 times winner Brazil. There are many notable absentees due to injuries, primarily due to the fact that the World Cup is taking place in the middle of the European club football season. There will be a round-robin format in the group stage, when each of the 32 teams play 3 matches each. The top 2 in each group advance to the last 16. The knockout rounds will begin on 3rd December and will feature one-off matches. The final will take place on 18th December at the Lusail Iconic Stadium. Qatar has undergone significant transformations since it won the bid to host the 2022 World Cup over a decade ago. The tournament will be played across 8 stadiums, and some fans will stay on cruise ships and at sites in the desert, with at least 3 floating hotels docking in Doha.
The Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, on behalf of the government and people of Pakistan, has extended best wishes to the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and the brotherly people of the country for hosting the Football World Cup. In a tweet, the Prime Minister said, "The world will experience the best of Qatar's history, culture, and hospitality."
France striker Karim Benzema has been ruled out of the World Cup in Qatar after suffering a thigh injury in training. Now, the Ballon d'Or winner, who has been struggling with a muscle problem, was forced to leave defending champions France training session earlier on Saturday due to an injury to his left quadriceps. Now, France, already without influential midfielders Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante because of injury, opened the campaign against Australia in Group D on Tuesday.
With the World Cup about to start, soccer-mad Brazilians have started to gear up for the competition, hoping their national squad will clinch their 6th world title. Now, painting hand streets and hanging flags ahead of the tournament have already become a tradition in the 5-time world champion nation. Now, the locals, children and teenagers in the Via Isabel neighborhood help decorate their streets with yellow and green garlands and paintings on asphalt. Now, meters away, walls feature the cartoon figure of Brazilian soccer legend Pelé and forward Vinicius dancing. Now, Brazil kicks off their World Cup campaign on Thursday against Serbia before facing their other Group G opponents, Switzerland and Cameroon.
Moving back to the COP27 and the climate change. An often fraught United Nations Climate Summit wrapped up with sweeping agreement on how to tackle the global warming and a historic deal to create a special fund to cover the damages suffered by the vulnerable nations. The 2-week talks, which at times appeared to teeter on the brink of the collapse, delivered a major breakthrough on the fund for climate loss and damage, but left some disappointed over failure to push further ambition on cutting the emissions. Now, delegates applauded after the loss and damage fund was adopted following days of marathon negotiations over the proposal. Final COP27 statement covering the broad array of the world's efforts to grapple with a warming planet held the line on the aspirational goal of limiting the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels. It also included the language on renewable energy for the first time, while reiterating the previous calls to accelerate the efforts towards the phase down of the unabated coal power and phase out of the inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. But that failed to go much further than a similar decision from last year's meeting in Glasgow on key issues around, disappointing the observers. As the final session stretched until sunrise after crunch talks went overnight, some delegates slept in their chairs. Others struggled to keep their eyes open.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has said the establishment of Loss and Damage Fund at the UN Climate Summit is the first pivotal step towards the goal of climate justice. In a tweet, the Prime Minister said it is up to the Transitional Committee to build on the historical development. Shehbaz Sharif appreciated the Minister for Climate Change, Shari Rahman, and her team for their contribution and hard work. Now, according to the Prime Minister's office, establishment of the Damage and Loss Fund is a practical step towards climate justice. The Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, Foreign Minister Bilal Bhutto Zardari, and the Minister for Climate Change, Shari Rahman, raised their voice for climate justice at the regional and global level. The Damage and Loss Fund will provide financial assistance to the countries suffering from floods and other climatic damages. And this will also help the flood victims in Pakistan in rehabilitation and reconstruction processes. Now, earlier, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif attended the COP27 on the special invitation of the conference and the President of Egypt. The Prime Minister co-chaired the Roundtable Conference on Climate Change on the topic of damage and loss. Now, he addressed the conference regarding damages of climate change and shed light on the ways to address the issue. This fund will be a milestone addressing the threats posed by climate change.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has commended the manifestation of excellent climate diplomacy by Pakistan, led by Foreign Minister Bilal Bhutto Zardari, that resulted in the establishment of Damage and Loss Fund at the COP27 summit. In a tweet, the Prime Minister said all teams who worked with the Foreign Minister in this regard deserve appreciation, as Pakistan has succeeded in getting accepted its demand for Loss and Damage Fund as chair of the G77 plus China.
Foreign Minister Bilal Bhutto Zardari has termed the establishment of Damage and Loss Fund for the compensation of climate damage a major win for Pakistan and the entire developing world. In a series of tweets, he congratulated his Egyptian counterpart, Sameh Shukri, for hosting a historic COP. He also said a monumental achievement for the climate justice in G77 led by Pakistan, COP27 has successfully concluded with the loss and damage as part of the agenda, including a fund and financial arrangements to address this issue. Now, the minister expressed gratitude to all the members of G77 and China for their continued support and trust in Pakistan's leadership. He also lauded the teams of Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Climate Change led by the Minister for Climate Change, Shari Rahman, under the leadership of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif for a major win on the world stage.
Regarding the Climate Change, Minister for Climate Change Shari Rahman says the establishment of Loss and Damage Fund is an investment in climate justice. Addressing the G77 meeting at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, she termed establishment of the fund a positive milestone in fight against climate change.
Catastrophic floods in Pakistan that impacted 33 million people and resulted in losses and damages of over $13 billion. You promised us an implementation COP, and you delivered an implementation COP. So our congratulations to you and to all of us. The ultimate test, Mr. President, of this Conference of Parties is that it responded to the voices of the vulnerable, the damaged, and the lost of the whole world by establishing a fund for the lost and the damaged. Let me therefore commend you, Mr. President, for your leadership, your stamina and dedication for steering us through barriers, through challenges, for reaching a historic consensus. We have struggled for 30 years on this path, and today in Sharm el-Sheikh, this journey has achieved its first positive milestone. The establishment of a fund is not about dispensing charity. It is clearly a down payment on the longer investment in our joint futures. It is a down payment and an investment in climate justice. The catastrophic floods in Pakistan.
Well, Shari Rahman, of course, hailed the COP27 for setting up the Loss and Damage Fund, but on the other hand, the minister also expressed her concern over the lack of progress on the deficit and financing the formulation and implementation of the national adaptation plans. She said these are crucial tools for countries struggling to build resilience against the climate stress. Shari Rahman reiterated that G77 and China will continue to support the climate change negotiation process in forging common ground for reclaiming our planet for our future generations.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has welcomed the COP27 final agreement but said there is still much to be done.
He has taken an important step towards justice. I welcome the decision to establish a loss and damage fund and to operationalize it in the coming period. Clearly, this will not be enough, but it is a much needed political signal to rebuild broken trust. The voices of those on the front lines of the climate crisis must be heard. The UN system will support this effort every step of the way.
Well, earlier we spoke to Rafe Alam, environmental lawyer, about the significance of the Loss and Damage Fund at the United Nations Climate Summit and Pakistan's diplomatic efforts in this regard. Let's have a look.
As you know, the entire effort of these conference of parties in the UNFCCC is to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions to keep global temperatures within 1.5 degrees. Now, unfortunately, global north or developed countries haven't come through on their promises on mitigating and keeping temperatures to 1.5, or indeed in the transfer of funds under the Global Climate Fund to less developed countries so that they can better adapt to climate changes. And as a result, countries like Pakistan, countries like Nigeria, countries like the Philippines are experiencing the ravages of a climate catastrophe. The floods this year, the unprecedented floods this year, were calculated by a study conducted by the Imperial College of London, which said that nearly 70% of the intensity of the rainfall that happened this year in Sindh and Balochistan was on account of the 1 degree temperature increase seen by global warming. So this was a man-made disaster made somewhere else for Pakistanis to suffer, and because the global north isn't doing enough, countries like Pakistan and activists around the world have been arguing for a loss and damage facility. These are funds that are to be collected by the countries of the global north, the countries that have contributed to the climate disaster, to be released to those countries of the global south or developing countries or countries impacted by climate change, so that they can put their economies and their people back on their feet after repeated climate disasters. The success in this COP has been that before this COP, loss and damage was not even on the COP agenda. It was because of the floods in Pakistan that this issue became highlighted. It's been a backbencher agenda item for 20 years, but highlighted by the floods in Pakistan in July and August this year, it was put onto the COP agenda. And once on the COP agenda, you have to understand it's a multilateral system. All the countries of the world are represented. Every country has one vote and one veto. Pakistan this year also chaired the G77 plus China group of countries negotiating the agenda on COP, and the Ministry of Climate Change, led ably, I must say, by Minister Sherry Rahman, was able to move opinion so that this non-agenda item could be discussed and a consensus could be reached by the end of this COP meeting, that a loss and damage facility would be achieved, would be set up, and that an implementation or a transition committee would now work on sorting out the details of this facility so that it can be presented at the COP next year. While the creation or the establishment of a fund is a success, as I said earlier, the primary function of the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, is to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions and to keep global temperatures to within 1.5 degrees of warming compared to pre-industrial levels. But what we are not seeing is sharp enough language in the text of this COP talking about the phasing out of fossil fuels. We're talking about, right now it's a bit more watery. It's talking about, for instance, of the phasing down of just coal use, and in some places. No, this language has to be stronger. And so obviously there are other parts of the COP that deserve attention as well. The loss and damage is a success, but we need to look at the wider aspects of the decision here to realize that there's still lots more to be fought for. There are going to be further disasters. This last summer, I might be absolutely frank, was probably the coolest summer that all of us will experience for the rest of our lives. It is going to get hotter, and these increased heat waves are going to generate more and more ferocious precipitation and monsoons. So these disasters are going to come hard and fast and more regularly. There are plenty of questions that are left unanswered about the loss and damage fund. And that's why it's important that an implementation committee has also been set up. The questions, for example, who is going to pay into this fund? In what proportion are countries going to pay into this fund? And already remember that countries of the global north have failed in their promises to capitalize the Global Climate Fund. That was supposed to be $100 billion by this time, and it was promised 9 years ago. It has fractions of that amount in it right now. So there are questions about the ability, or not the ability, the commitment of the global north to come through on even donating and capitalizing on this facility. And beyond that, there are questions about which countries will receive this money or these funds, and what terms, and what sorts of transparent frameworks these countries will have to establish to ensure that the money they've been given for rehabilitation after climate disasters is being spent in the right way and on the right people, and in, sustainable and resilient projects. So these are all questions that need to be decided. But I think what's important to remember is the diplomatic achievement here, that in 12 days, a subject that was not on the agenda of the COP went through, and through international cooperation, through diplomacy, we have the establishment of a fund which is almost nearly a third leg of the entire UNFCCC. The first.
Now, the United Nations Development Programme and Islamic Relief have signed a memorandum of understanding to support the flood-affected communities in Sindh. Speaking at the signing ceremony in Islamabad, UNDP Pakistan resident representative Knut Osby also said that the aim of this partnership is to revive the livelihood and rehabilitate the critical infrastructure in flood-affected districts. He said an initial target of 10,000 cash for work hours will be set, with an increased focus on inclusion of women.
Well, the International Conference of the Asian Political Parties on Sunday unanimously elected Senator Mushahid Hussain Sayyed as the ICAP co-chairman at its biennial conference in Turkey. The conference is Asia's oldest and largest organization of the political parties, with 200 representatives and leaders of the 70 political parties from 33 countries. Mushahid Hussain Sayyed's name for co-chairman was proposed by Thailand and Iran and supported by China, Cambodia, Russia, Lebanon, Turkey, and Indonesia before being put to a vote. Senator Mushahid Hussain thanked the participants of the conference for reposing confidence in him, terming his election as a humbling experience and a great honor for Pakistan. He also termed the current epoch as a historic transformation for Asia, as the balance of economic and political power is shifting from west to east, marking the dawn of the Asian century.
Indian troops in their fresh act of state terrorism martyred one more Kashmiri youth in Islamabad district of the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. According to Kashmir Media Service, the troops martyred the youth in a fake encounter during a military operation in Bijapura area of the district. And as World Children's Day is being observed all over the world, the children in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir continue to remain the biggest victims of Indian brutalities. Now, a report released by the Kashmir Media Service said that New Delhi has martyred 600, rather 915 children during the past 34 years in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir Valley. Now, the report pointed out that the killing of civilians by the troops rendered 107,887 children orphaned in the territory.
And putting the British government on notice of a grave human rights situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the upper house lawmakers have urged the authorities to intervene and prevent genocide in the UN-designated disputed region and play its role in implementing the United Nations resolutions on Kashmir. Addressing a special debate last week to discuss the situation in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and in India, Lord Qurban Hussain questioned the British government whether it will link any future free trade deal between the United Kingdom and India with the human rights. Many British lawmakers joined the debate, where questions regarding India's inhuman and war crimes were debated. President Tehreek-e-Kashmir Fahim Kiani, along with the prominent journalist Zafar Malik, attended the debate as observers. Azad Kashmir-born Hussain urged the British Foreign Affairs authorities to include India in the annual list of the countries with human rights concern. He also presented the details of illegal abduction by the Indian occupying forces of Kashmiri resistance leadership and activists, besides the illegal arrests of the journalists and human rights defenders.
Renowned religious scholar Mufti Rafi Usmani has been laid to rest in the graveyard adjacent to Darul Uloom Karachi in Kuramki area. His funeral prayer was led by his brother Mufti Taqi Usmani in Kuramki. Governor Sindh, JUIF chief, and important religious and social figures and a large number of people attended the prayer. A large number of muftis and devotees participated in the funeral prayer of religious scholar Mufti Rafi Usmani, while a heavy contingent of police and rangers were deployed on the occasion. Now, Muhammad Rafi Usmani was the president of Darul Uloom Kurangi, Karachi, and the patron-in-chief of Waqf Madaris Al Arabia in Pakistan.
Moreover, Bengali Action Committee held a rally outside the press club in Karachi to express solidarity with Pakistan Armed Forces. The participants expressed their full confidence in the Pakistan Army and reiterated their commitment that the Pakistan Army and the people are connected with each other and any kind of conspiracy will be countered together. They said the general public is standing shoulder to shoulder with Pakistan Army for the defense and protection of the motherland. The participants said peace has been restored in the country after notorious sacrifices of the law enforcement agencies.
Pakistani cyclist Amir Shahzadawan succeeded during the Pakistan-Afghanistan goodwill cycle tour. Now taking the Pakistani flag, this young man started his journey from Chang on September 28th and reached Afghanistan through different regions where he visited various tourist and historical places. Now while talking to BT, Shahzadawan said the purpose of this tour only to convey the soft image of Pakistan and the message of love from the Pakistani people to the entire world. Now Amir Shahzadawan is also planning to start a world tour with Pakistani flag.
Well, Kazakhs voted in presidential elections expected to cement the incumbent Kassym-Jomart Tokayev's grip on power. People all over the world were showing great interest in casting their votes for their leaders according to their will, free and fairly. The victory of President Tokayev, who voted early on Sunday in capital Astana, is all but a foregone conclusion. Now hoping to turn over a new leaf, Tokayev said he sought a new mandate of trust from people in this election. There are 6 candidates competing for the country's highest official: incumbent President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, Karakat Abdin, Miram Kazakhin, Nurlan Asibev, Sultanat, and Ziguli. Among the regions, the highest voter turnout was in the Karaganda region, 32.27%, while the lowest was in the city of Almaty, 8.42%.
International observers have expressed satisfaction on the polling process in Kazakhstan. During a briefing to media at the Center of Assistance to the International Observers, they said no violation of code of conduct has been reported from any polling station. Our correspondent Fahad Ahmed reports from Kazakhstan.
25 observers from different 10 international organizations. They have observed the election process and they gave briefing here to the journalists who have come from different countries. Around over 150 journalists is present in the room. The international observers have shared their findings with the journalists, with the media, that they have received no objections. Election process has gone smooth and everything is so far now is going according to plan, and they have also observed a massive turnout. People are coming in great number to exercise their right to vote. In reply to questions from the journalists, international observer, despite different kind of questions or critical questions, he said their findings are reliable and their findings can be shared as well with the international organizations like United Nations and European Union after publishing, and they are ready to produce the reports and they will report to their respective organizations. They are not bound to report to the United Nations and European Union.
Foreign journalists covering the presidential elections have analyzed the presidential elections. While talking to PTV World correspondent Fahad Ahmed Nissan in Astana, the foreign journalists are of the mind that these elections have far-reaching implications for the region.
It's very interesting presidential election. The presidential election is one of the biggest post-Soviet country after Russia, Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan people are built a country which one of the big and interesting country in the post-Soviet region, and I hope that the election will be with one of the biggest interests of not only region but only other countries in Asia and in Europe. The Kazakhstan is one of the rich economical country, and it very interesting to other countries, and first of all for my motherland Georgia. And I hope that in the future the relationship between Georgia and Kazakhstan will be fruitful for both countries.
This election is the more important for domestic, for inside Kazakhstan, and also for foreign policy. That for many factors, and I think President Qasem Jomart Tokayev will win this election. Either main because people inside Kazakhstan, almost people, want to give him a new mandate to be see the new reforms inside this country, and almost people want to continue the stability inside Kazakhstan, and also to be continuing the foreign relation based in many factors with all countries, Russia and China, also European countries.
What we have seen so far, it is quite obvious that the incumbent president is going to remain in the office for the next 7 years. It's a pity that other candidates are slightly less known and do not really stand a chance of competing with the incumbent president. I think it is important for the country to be able to choose their president the right way. I think that the observers that are here are playing an important role, and I think that apart from the process that they are looking at right now, which is the polling stations and the situation in those polling stations, it is important for them to look at the counting of all the ballots and all the votes, because that is how the final result of the election will be determined. I think it is important for the country, which is the biggest country in the region in Central Asia, to also try and set an example for the other countries in Central Asia, because it is a turbulent region. It is an important region for the future of the world, actually, as well. So the result of this election will show where this region will go forward.
So far, all the observers seem quite positive to the situation. It seems that everything is in order. It's transparent. It's few things they criticize so far, but I'm still, I wouldn't say concerned, but I'm curious about what will happen afterwards, the counting of votes in particular, how that process will move, and if they will be able to observe the entire process, and if they will be able to uncover any irregularities if they take place.
And do you think how much important these presidential elections are for the region? Do they hold some kind of a geopolitical implication?
Absolutely. If Kazakhstan manages to do this transition into a full-fledged democracy, it will have geopolitical repercussions for the entire region, especially since Kazakhstan is sandwiched between two superpowers, very strong powers we can say, is Russia and China. And it will also be an example for the other central states to follow, which is they can use Kazakhstan as a model of how they should govern their societies moving forward.
This is a very good organized, and they are very fair, and this is special that Tokayev is very popular, and the other candidates are not very popular, and the information is not enough, and this is surprised.
The chairperson of the board of the Nazarbayev Center for Development of Interfaith Harmony and Inter-Civilization Dialogue, Bulletin said that the presidential election would bring prosperity and peace in the country. as the incumbent president, Kasim Jomart Tokayev, is visionary leader with transformative agenda for building a new Kazakhstan. He expressed these views while talking to PTV World at the polling station in Astana, Kazakhstan. He said that the presidential elections will turn into a new mandate for him to push his reforms. Afterwards, he proceeded to exercise his right to vote as well.
Elections today, I just remembered the days for the elections in the past. Usually it is like some important day. Today we will select the president, and my choice is obvious. I am for President Tokayev, so I worked with him in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs long time. So my choice over.
Taking to Malaysia now, where rival blocs have claimed that they had secured the support they needed to form a government after Malaysia's hotly contested polls saw no party emerge with a clear majority of the parliamentary seats. A veteran opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim said his coalition had enough seats to form the country's next government, which would allow him to become prime minister. Former Premier Muhyiddin Yassin, who heads the rival National Alliance, also said he was in talks to form the next administration after Saturday's election. Now, in a bid to break the impasse, the palace on Sunday asked the leaders of the political parties to submit their preferred choice of the coalition partners and, of course, for the Prime Minister by Monday.
Nepali voters of all ages stood in long queues as voting started in a general election. The election pits the ruling alliance of the Nepali Congress Party, led by Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Doiba, and some former Maoist rebels against the Nepalese Community and Communist Unified Marxist-Leninist Party. Now, there are no pre-election polls, but the political analysts expect the ruling alliance to retain power. Analysts said a new government would face the challenge of reviving the economy and curbing high prices. The Election Commission said it would take up to 2 weeks to declare the final results. About 18 million people are eligible to vote for the 275-member parliament and the 550 members of 7 provincial assemblies.
Well, Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation leaders participated in the last retreat of the regional summit, pledging to boost trade and do more to tackle other economic challenges. Leaders of the 21-member bloc in their declaration at the end of a 2-day summit in Bangkok also said they recognized that more intensive efforts are needed to address such challenges as rising inflation, food security, climate change and natural disasters. The APEC gathering is the 3rd summit in the region in the past week. A Southeast Asian summit that included China, Japan and the United States was held in Cambodia, while the G20 nations met on the Indonesian island of Bali.
Twitter's new owner Elon Musk has said Donald Trump's account has been reinstated after running a poll in which users narrowly backed the move. Now, Musk said that 51.8% of more than 15 million Twitter users voted for the ban to be lifted. But the former US president may not return to the platform earlier, saying, "I don't see any reason for it." His account was suspended in 2021 due to the risk of incitement of violence.
On to America now again, where 2 American B-1B bombers have been redeployed to the Korean peninsula to conduct joint drills in response to North Korea's intercontinental ballistic missile launch on the previous day. The video provided by the military showed South Korean F-35A fighters and US F-16 jets escorting the B-1B bombers as they conducted joint drills. The military said the drill was held on Saturday and it was designed to improve their ability to quickly deploy deterrence assets from the United States.
The 5 people were killed and 18 injured in a shooting at a club in Colorado. The suspect was in custody and was being treated for injuries after the attack. The police cordoned off the area and also carried out rescue operations.
Now, in an unfortunate incident, a Latam Airlines jet collided with a fire truck on the runway of Peru's international airport as it was taking off. The collision resulted in the death of two firefighters. Footage taken by a passenger that was waiting to board another flight shows the plane on fire on a runway as firefighters spray water on it amid a plume of thick smoke. The airline said no passengers or flight crew members were killed in the incident. Latam Airlines said a fire truck got in the runway during the takeoff. All the authorities are still investigating the reasons.
World Children's Day is being observed today to improve children's welfare worldwide. The year's theme of the day is inclusion for every child. In a joint statement, the UN experts have called for the intensified efforts to combat the persisting prevalence of violence, exploitation, abuse, trafficking, torture, and harmful practices against children.
More news from the National Front now, where Minister for Poverty Alleviation and Social Safety Shazia Marie says Benazir Income Support Program is providing education and health scholarships to thousands of children belonging to the poor families. In this video message to mark the day, she said we should remember that millions of the children have been displaced by the recent floods and are waiting for our help. The minister urged the nation to come together to help these affected children. Shazia Marie said that Benazir Income Support Program is also providing sachets of vitamins and minerals to the mother and the child. Highlighting the importance of the education, she said that through unique educational scholarships, children of the poor families are imparted basic education.
Death anniversary of influential intellectual, revolutionary poet, and one of the most highly regarded poets of the Urdu language, Faiz Ahmed Faiz, is being observed today. He was born in Sialkot on February 13, 1911. Faiz Ahmed's literary work was publicly honored when Pakistan government conferred upon him the nation's highest civil award, Nishana-e-Imtiaz, in 1990. He was the first Asian poet to receive the Lenin Peace Prize, awarded by the Soviet Union in 1962. In 1976, he was awarded the Lotus Prize for Literature. His notable works include Naqsh-e-Faryadi, Daste-e-Sabah, and Zindan-Nama. Faiz Ahmed had also worked as the editor of Mahanama Adab-e-Latif and became a lecturer in the English at Mao College, Amritsar in 1935, and then at Haley College of Commerce, Lahore. In 1959, he was appointed Secretary Pakistan Arts Council and worked in that capacity till 1962. Returning from London in 1964, he settled down in Karachi and was appointed the principal at Abdullah Harun College. Also, Faiz Ahmed Faiz distinguished himself as a journalist and was editor of the Pakistan Times, the Urdu newspaper Imroz, and the weekly Lailo Nihar. Now, in the 1965 war between India and Pakistan, he worked in an honorary capacity in the Department of Information as well.
The birth anniversary of the veteran literary scholar and poet Ahmed Nadeem Qasmi is being observed today. He was born on 20th of November 1916 in the village Anga of Kushab district. He was given the Pride of Performance, Pakistan Academy of Letters Lifetime Achievement Award, as well as the country's highest civil honor, Sitara-e-Imtiaz. He published collections of his best-known work, including poetry volumes Jalal-u-Jamal, Sholai-Gul and Dashte-Wafa, and short story collections Chopal, Sannata, and Kapas Kapu, Bagole, Tulo Guru, Salabu Gardab, Aanchal, and Ghar Se Ghar Tak.
The Taiwanese movie Cuckoo 0431 won the Best Narrative Feature Film at the 59th Golden Horse Awards in Taipei. Now, the film was also produced the winner of the Best New Performer Award for 24-year-old Hu Jin-chiang. The awards for Best Lead Actors were taken away by Hong Kong's Anthony Wong and the Taiwanese actress Sylvia Chan. Now, Laha Mibao won the Best Director for her movie Gaga, a family drama telling the story of the granddaughter returning home to her indigenous Taiwanese community from abroad, causing commotion.
Anime NYC, a 3-day convention of Japanese animation and culture attracting anime fans from all over the world. Many of them devoted many days to dress up as their favorite animation character. A cosplayer from Pennsylvania, Nakayushi Bunny, says it took her months to make her dress. Another cosplayer, Dog, says it took 5 hours just to make a perfect Naruto wig. The convention includes panel discussions with the famous animation directors, producers, and actors, animation film showings, and a masquerade ball competition.
Now, organ grinders from around the world are expected to join the first international festival held in Chile to honor their performance. Musicians from countries like Mexico and Germany were also invited. Mexican musicians and dancers in folkloric costumes performed traditional songs and dances.
Well, thank you, Esther. With this, we come towards the end of our bulletin. That's all for now from our side. Myself, Ali Ahmed, my co-anchors, Tayyiba Nisar Khan and Ehsan Haqqani. For more details and live streaming, do log on to our website, world.ptv.com.pk. You can always find us on our Facebook page in the name of PTV World. And don't forget to follow us on our Twitter handle @WorldPTV. For more news, updates, and analysis, keep watching PTV World.